Good evening, beautiful woman. Welcome to Isaya's Inspiring Evenings, a podcast full of goddess series, witches' secrets, colors of women, and fairy seasons to integrate serenity, abundance, joy, and magic into your life. I am Isaya Bell, creatrix, magical pragmatic inspiration mentor, tech goddess teacher, and traveling priestess. And this podcast aims to accompany you for peaceful and inspiring evenings. Isaya's Inspiring Evenings has had various iterations and styles and is published irregularly. Subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice to be informed of the publication of each new episode. If you like this podcast, please support it by leaving stars, blue thumbs, and reviews on whatever platform you listen to me. In 2024, there are going to be 5 series in it. For now, all different, all aiming to inspire the audience, all telling stories, each complementing each other. One series titled Women Lighting the Way is about women's stories, centering around the past or future speakers from the various Women Lighting the Way summits, adding to the virtual library of women's stories and providing a much-needed counterpoint to the many men's stories going around in our world of patriarchy. This is one of those episodes, and I'm happy to invite you to listen to the story of Jessica Lohmann, recorded in 2023 and titled Long, Strange Dripping with Trust, Alignment, and Gratitude. Enjoy!
Hello, and welcome to my story, Long Strange Tripping with Trust, Alignment, and Gratitude. I am Jessica Lohmann, and I will be your host for today, and I'm so grateful that you're here. So thank you. I want to start with my story from 1993. I was living in Atlanta. It was my 3rd year in Atlanta, and I was out with some friends. And it was kind of a normal evening. Atlanta has a huge music scene, so we wanted to see a band, and we were in the parking lot, and then we got assaulted. A young man with a gun. He was younger than we were, it looked like, and he had a gun, and it was kind of, a little bit disturbing. Let's put it that way. Anyway, at that point, that was kind of pivotal point for me, because then I said, I don't want to raise a family here. I had been living there, like I said, for 3 years already. And it was just, I didn't really like it after that. It was just a little too dangerous for me. So the funny thing was that I knew nothing about manifestation back then. We didn't even have the internet, right? So I couldn't research anything, and I didn't even know anything about the universe or manifestation. I was young. I didn't know anything about this. So, but what happened was in 1994, right? I said, I don't want to live here anymore. And in 1994, I met someone, and he was from Germany, and I fell in love. And when he asked at one point whether he should get a green card, I said, no, get me the hell out of here. And so, I moved like a year and a half after meeting him to Germany in 1995 at the age of 25. Boom. My new life in Europe began. Who would have known? So when I moved there, I first learned German. And then it took me about like 4 years to really get used to the culture and mentality. It is different, right? I was, for one thing, I was a vegetarian. So that was like, that was kind of rough in the 90s, in a meat and potato country. I still ate fish, so that was okay. But it was still kind of difficult. And like, I was born and raised in New York, on Long Island, and then upstate New York, and then I moved down south. So, New York is a little cool from the mentality. You know, the people are a little bit cooler, colder than they are in the South, like generally speaking. Like the South are like warm and friendly, hospitable. And so I went from South Carolina to Germany where, ooh, it was really icy. like, like strangers don't smile at you when you walk, take a nature walk in the forest, and you hardly ever see any people. But if you say hello and smile, they're like, why you smile at me? Like they give you a dirty look. And I still get this, just not as often. And I'm continuing to smile like, hi, good morning. Sometimes I get a look, sometimes I get a lovely welcome greeting back. But I'm still testing this theory. And back then, customer service was a foreign concept in Germany, like foreign. I remember going to like a Macy's, I guess. It's called Karstadt, and I had a couple of things. I went to the cashier, and the two cashiers are just like chatting at each other, like looking at each other away from me. And then they looked at me, gave me a dirty look, and then started back in on their conversation again. I was like, and I had to like say, excuse me, can I please pay? Like that's how bad it was. But then the internet came, then Walmart came and went. But like these kind of things actually improved customer service in Germany because, like I said, it was non-existent. And then I had they put ketchup on my nachos at a Mexican restaurant. They didn't know what jalapenos were back then. It was like, where am I? So that was quite an experience. So it did take me a little bit of time to get used to the German culture. But I'm still here. So I guess that says something. Well, let me continue with the story. I got a job in an advertising agency. I'm a marketer, so I studied marketing and got my BBA, bachelor's in marketing in 1991 at the University of South Carolina. So I got a job at an advertising agency, but honestly, I got crushed. It was negative. It was aggressive energy. And after 2 years, I left and I started working for an IT software company. And yeah, one thing about like we got married, about our marriage, like we got married, and my husband was often away. He was a computer engineer, and so he had a lot of project work out in different cities all over the country. And so I was like alone from the get-go, from the beginning, from like Monday to Thursday, actually Monday to Friday, because he came home really late on Thursday. He also went to his weekly card game with his friends on his way home. So I didn't see him Thursday night either. So basically I only saw him on the weekends. And I moved here, I left my friends, I left my family. I didn't know anybody here. And so I was a bit lonely. I met some people, at the German language school, but we're all trying to find our way, right? And it's kind of hard to find friends sometimes for me, especially like in a country that's kind of cliquey. Like if you're not here and you don't have these friends from kindergarten or whatever, it's kind of hard to come in. And I'm not very extroverted. Like I can really talk to people who I am mission aligned with, who get me and I get them, and like I have deeper conversations with people. It's not this like not important conversations. And so yeah, it takes me a while to find like really good friends. So I was a little lonely in the beginning, and he was away, and yeah, so I started a yoga class, which maybe actually might have been the start of my spiritual journey. I can't really pinpoint that to one day or one event, but that's when I started reading more and stuff, and the internet came. But 5 years into our marriage, we had our first crisis. My husband cheated on me. Okay, yeah, we did survive it. I come from a family of a lot of divorces and, childhood trauma because of it, and abandonment from my biological father, and all these things. So, that crushed me because it literally crushed me. But I was like, I am not getting a divorce. I don't care. I'm going to do anything to keep this marriage going. Well, basically, we put a Band-Aid on it. We, worked it out, but never really resolved our problems. And so, but for the time being, we thought we were okay. Everything's good, right? And so after like a few years, then we were like, okay, let's start a family. Well, then we tried, and months passed, nothing happened. Doctor's visits came and went, nothing happened. Switched doctors, I took progesterone and my temperature, I went back and forth to doctor, nothing happened. Years passed and another doctor switch, and then all of a sudden, like, this new doctor is like, oh, we have to do something now. She's like, looking at the time, seriously, how old are you? And then we found out, yeah, my fallopian tubes were shot. I was infertile. And, upon telling my husband this information, he was like, "Ooh, I'm glad it wasn't my fault." So great, thanks. Anyway, so that's when my IVF journey began. Yay, the joy, the joy. But honestly, for the first time in my life, I knew I was going to have a baby. I absolutely knew it. It was this like claircognizance. I think that's the way to pronounce it. I have a hard time pronouncing that. Claircognizance, this deep knowing. And I was like, I'm going to have a child. I'm going to raise a child. There's no question about it. And that's the first time that I felt that. And so I was 30. How old was I at the time? Like 33 at the time, or 34? Yeah, 34. For some reason, I think I was older. 30. Anyway, I knew I only had like 1 or 2 years left to get pregnant, because otherwise we would have to have paid like 100% of IVF, and it's not cheap, right? I know people in the States who don't get any health insurance coverage for that, and they like had to pay $80,000 for their twins. But hey, you can't put a price on people, right? So, but still, if you don't have the money, you can't do it. Yeah, so I started IVF, and I went through a total of 3 rounds, right? The first time I only put 2 eggs in. In Germany, you're only allowed to put 3. The second round, I really messed up. I forgot. It was like over the weekend, or it was over a holiday. And I did the injection on the wrong day. Oh, I did it too late or something. And I came back, and the doctor went in to get the eggs, and he found out, oh, they weren't mature enough. He yelled at me. Oh, he was so mad at me. He was so blamey and shamey. Oh, it was awful. But I was like, he was an awful doctor anyway, just no mannerisms. He was the only one in the city too. And he was just nasty, very nasty. But I was like, I just concentrated on, not worrying about the doctors, because that's like the least of my problems. So, anyway, the last time, the third time, the final round, I said, okay, put them all in, all 3, boom, we're going to do this. And then we took a trip to France for a week, and we just drove around. I'll never forget this. We were like on our way. I forget where we landed, but on our way, and it was like a kind of like a bumpy road, and we're like, the car's literally going like this. And I was like, oh, I'm making scrambled eggs right now. It's so funny, because with IVF, you know exactly when this happens. You get a picture of the egg. It's like, it kind of makes you feel unique. Anyway, so after this week, like exactly a week later, I was supposed to call back, right? So I did. And yeah, I got the best news ever. And I'm getting chills right now. I was pregnant, and I started to cry. My husband made fun of me for crying. But I was like, oh my God, it was so amazing. Now, the pregnancy part, I had to trust. I seriously had to trust. And I did. I still had this deep knowing that I'm going to have a baby. But the doctors, oh my goodness, they were trying to get me to stress out over everything. The pregnancy went well for me. I never got sick. I never felt, it was perfect. Everybody else seemed scared. Like they didn't even have I had American friends here too, and they didn't even they organized, what do you call them, baby showers for other people, but they didn't organize one for me. And I asked later, like, why didn't I get one? And she was like, well, because we thought it might stress you out. And I'm like, really? Seriously? Not if you plan it for me. Anyway, so I thought, yeah, the pregnancy went really well. But my gynecologist kept on sending me to the hospital because she was like, oh, you're having contractions. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm fine, and it was so funny. I just didn't pay attention to all that. I just went with it. I'm like, I'm going to have this baby. You guys could do what you want. I'll go to the hospital, but I'm just not going to worry about it. And yeah, my beautiful daughter, Leandra June was born in February in 2007. So almost like 6 years, exactly 6 years after we decided to have a baby. That's how long that whole procedure took. But it was this trust and deep knowing, this claircognizance. And whenever I have doubt or fear, well, I try to set that intention. Like if doubt comes in or if fear comes in, I think about my pregnancy. I think about my daughter, and I'm like, yeah, because then that reminds me, yeah, to have trust and to have this deep knowing. And it's come up again. I'll tell you a little bit about that later, but it's now here again. And I just love that feeling. So, and again, I had no idea about manifestation. That came later. Now, before 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 I move on, let me talk about grief a little bit. Unfortunately, like after the celebration of Leanla's birth, my grief process started in 2008. Like a year later, this was a week before we were gonna arrive back home to the States with my daughter, having my mom and dad see her for the first time. They had now since split up, but that's beside the point. So I was gonna, they were gonna see her for the first time. Well, a week before that trip, my dad, who raised me since I was 5, he had an aorta tear, and from 1 minute to the next was paralyzed from the waist down because he didn't take his blood pressure medicine. He was so depressed from his own divorce from my mom that he took heavy doses of aspirin, and for a very long time we knew nothing about this. We knew he was depressed. We stayed in touch and whatever, but he just didn't take care of his body. He was 57. Yes, my parents were very young. When my mom was 19 when she had me, and my stepdad was like 2 years younger than her, and he adopted us when I was 8, but he married my mom when I was 5. So since then, he was my dad, right? He became a permanent resident at a nursing home at 57. He was diabetic. He had a leg amputated, multiple urinary tract infections from the catheter, and eventually was put on dialysis. So 9 years after his collapse, after his aorta tear in 2017, he passed. It was so traumatic. And, I remember midnight calls, hey, you got to come. He's dying, right? So I would pack in the middle of the night in the dark and fly the next morning. And this happened a couple of times, and only to come, and then he's sitting up and everything's good. So there were several scares. It was 9 years of hell, but he was so inspirational to all the nurses and back there, because they were used to dementia patients, and he was still his little snarky self, and I just love him and miss him so much. Anyway, before he died, though, in 2015, my father-in-law passed away, and from lung cancer. He was the kinder and nicer of my in-laws. So that happened, and a few weeks later, then my Nana passed. And because she lost her will to live, like her body was not ready, in my honest opinion. She was fit, but she was ready. She didn't want to live anymore. She was, I think, what, 93? Oh, no, I'm sorry. She was 90 at the time. Yeah. And then my mom passed a year after my dad in 2016. And this was like a surprise. She was addicted to alcohol and pills and had a pulmonary emboly after major head surgery because she was a nurse and asked the doctor for a high dose of pain medication because she was addicted. But of course, the doctor didn't know. So she was too numb to move after the surgery. And her husband was too unaware of her situation, because when my mom said, "Hey, I'm not moving," it's kind of hard to get her to move. Like, you have to physically move her yourself. She just lied there for like a week, and we didn't know it. My sister and I did not know this. We thought she was fine. We even talked to her and everything. Well, she was supposed to have this surgery like 24 years before she did, because she just didn't want to deal with it. And we didn't know anything about this. My sister and I knew nothing about this. But that tumor grew. It was like right above her optical nerve. It grew and grew and grew. So she died on the day my family and I arrived in Johannesburg for the dream vacation I planned for months. We were going to go there for 3 weeks, and she died on the day we arrived. And yeah, so, but she wanted she wrote, I talked to her husband, and she wanted us to stay there. She told him that. So we celebrated her life later. We celebrated her life in Disney with my daughter, something that she always wanted to do with my daughter, but we did it. My sister and I, my daughter, and her husband, we went to Disney and celebrated her life there. And yeah, the thing was that I wrote an article, and I sent it off to Ariana Puffington about grieving in Africa, because I'm not going to go into it, but her mother died in a very spiritual way, and her mother knew she was going to die, just like my mother knew I was going to die. So I personally wrote her. She wrote me back. She wrote me back the day that I wrote her. That was the day that she left the HuffPost to start Thrive Global. Getting chills again. And she invited me to contribute to both of those magazines. So I sent in my article, it got published, and then I started contributing to Thrive Global about other issues. But because of that, I thought, okay, well, I'll write a book about grieving in Africa. Well, it never came to that, because then my dad died. And then I thought, okay, how can I honor both of their deaths? And they gave to me the most precious gift I could ever dream of: to respect all animals, to respect nature. And so, yeah, I thought about writing a series for children, where each book in the series addresses a different animal rights issue. So in 2019, which was like 3 years after my mom's death, and 2 years after my dad's death, I published Lily Bowers and the Uninvited Guest, and it's a preteen book. An eco fantasy is what I call it. It's like magical realism. So, and it shows kids that they really do have the power and influence to make a difference and change the world and save animals. And it addresses the topic of animal testing. And it's available in four languages now: English, German, Italian, and Polish. And it was also shortlisted for the Lush Prize last year. So I didn't win the prize, but Humane Society International was also shortlisted. So that's just an honor to be in that short list of only 7 organizations, where it's just little old me, and then you have these huge organizations. What an honor. So let me go back, though, to a year after my daughter was born. So she was born in 2007. And then I went back to work. I had a year off and took care of her. And then I worked part-time. So in 2011, I wanted to step down from responsibilities. I wanted to take care of her more. That's why I wanted to not work as much. And so I applied for like an easy feeling content creation job. Well, because of my background in marketing and my experience, in the corporate world, I got offered a head of marketing position to build up the marketing department at a hotel management software company. It was a big position. And so I was like, okay, well, then I'll, me and my workaholism, because I do suffer from that. I'm working on it though. And um, so I said, okay, 30 hours a week, Monday through Thursday, I have Friday off. Well, I still work on Fridays. I still, worked when my daughter was sick. It's like, I was burning out quickly. Well, my 2-year initial contract was not renewed. Thank God it was not renewed. I was heartbroken because they said they didn't want to renew it. Basically, we didn't jive. I didn't I didn't jive with the work atmosphere. There were things that were just hierarchical. It was a toxic working environment, and I rebelled a bit. And they didn't like that because it was kind of like, oh, we're I don't know. It wasn't good for me. And that door closed, but you know what? I said, okay, I'm going to do what I probably should have done a long time ago, is to become self-employed. And it almost felt like a spontaneous idea, but I was like, this is good. This is really good, because my intuition told me that I cannot survive in the corporate world. I just can't. I've had too much trauma in there, and it just doesn't jive with my marketing philosophy either. Because, yeah, I'll go into that a little bit later. But basically, like, what I've done over the past 10 years, I've built up 3 businesses in alignment with my true passion, which is protecting nature. So I literally speak, write, and market for nature as a voice talent, nature advocacy author, and ethical marketing strategist, because I truly believe that the root cause of all our societal problems, all of them, is that we are completely disconnected from nature. Completely. Even though we are nature, we don't understand that we need nature to survive. So I'm vegan now. First, I haven't eaten land animals since 1992. I haven't eaten marine life since 2012, and I transitioned to veganism in 2017. So now I'm vegan. And I started ethical brand marketing in 2018 to help eco brands and freelancing creatives market in a way that resonates with their values without the manipulation, because the manipulation drives consumerism, drives the sale, and that's why marketing enables over consumerism. I write articles for Entrepreneur Europe, B Lab, Thrive Global, and Raid Boxes, a green website host here in Germany. And so I write about over-consumerism, how marketing enables that, how it harms our environment, and how we can market in an ethical way instead. Because I believe that ethical marketing is, helping the consumer make a conscious choice. That's all marketing should be. And so I have developed ways that you can do that. And so I connect with a lot of like-minded business owners, and I'm so excited. I could talk about this for hours, but I better move on. So yeah, 2020, what happened? COVID. That was the least of my problems. I could care less. The COVID for me was like actually a confirmation of my work, because what happened? It's because we don't respect animals, right? And yeah, it was warning from Mother Nature. So yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. We need this wake up call, although I don't think it was big enough, but we'll get more, right? Anyway, but remember me mentioning that my husband and I never really resolved our problems? Well, yeah, to add to all the grief with all my family members, I decided to separate from my husband after 24 years of marriage. Yeah, so the divorce is still going on, because in Germany, something like that takes forever. This was my own initiative, because I just couldn't handle the indifference and lack of love and communication from him. Although no blame and shame, I have my own stuff. I was very vocal, very loud, very nasty when I, didn't get any response. So we couldn't communicate. It's a problem in so many marriages and partnerships. And so The worst thing though was because my daughter, the worst thing that happened to me was because my daughter was she didn't like me. She did not like my decision. She was so mad at me that she stayed with my husband for a while, and she didn't want any contact with me, and that was more heartbreaking than anything else, like anything else. So what happened in 2021, a cyst the side of a grapefruit grew inside of me, and even more female parts along with that cyst came out in February 2021. In June, my retina detached in my left eye. So I had 3 surgeries on my eye. I had 4 hospital visits and a lot of discomfort. I was half blind for 6 months. My income for 2021 was like minus 600 and something. I didn't earn any money. Yeah, it was awful. So 2021 was the worst year of my life. It was the first time that I actually understood depression. I situational depression. I wasn't suicidal, but I thought often, yeah, if I died in a car wreck, who cares? I don't care, right? And but I woke up the next morning on New Year's Day and I was like, things got to change. So I started like a morning routine, a daily yoga, meditation, and nature walk practice that I still do today, non-negotiable. And I started a gratitude journal where I just didn't write down, I am grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. I wrote down one person or one thing that I was grateful for and like 5, 6, 7 reasons why. Like I deeply felt into that. Why was I grateful for this one person and thing? And that like felt, I'm getting chills again. That gave me so much love. That made me feel love again. And even though, I had just had a year of not having love with my daughter and my, all those years with my husband, I felt love with this gratitude. And I was able to sort of forgive myself. I mean, it's still a work in progress because I felt guilty because my daughter's like blaming me or, well, she wasn't really blaming me. She was just very, very angry and she just didn't want a part of my life. She didn't want me in her life. And that's like so heartbreaking anyway. So I knew I had to forgive myself and I knew I had to forgive my others like my husband. And I knew that everything will be okay. It was still a struggle though. It really was. Like last year was getting better. It was really getting better because I was doing all this internal and spiritual work. And I just knew, okay, it's going to be okay. I am okay. I'll be financially okay. It's going to be all right. And, you hear this like to trust in everything. You hear it from motivational speakers or coaches or whatever. And, I mean, if you're like me, I'm like, yeah, I know that's true. Yeah. But it doesn't sink in. Like you can't really implement it. Or like when it happens to you, you're like, you forget completely about it. Well, I started to really think of like when stuff came up, then I was like, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It really is. I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And just like the end of last year, I felt like it's kind of weird, but I just felt a boost of energy. I was like, oh my God, I feel good now. Like I feel really, really good. Like, my relationship with my daughter is a lot better. It's not perfect. It's not like it used to be. She's 16. She's a teenager. So it can't be the way it was like when she was 10. Right? I mean, those days are gone. But she loves me again. And so and this year has just been amazing. Like it's by the time you see this, it's June. I'm recording this in May, like the almost the middle of May. So I've already earned more revenue than I've earned for a whole year in my entire self-employment. In these entire 10 years, I've earned already more than I've earned in 10 years. So that's wonderful. And I have something like really, really, really good that I'm cooking up right now. I'm currently designing a program for nature-loving creative freelancers, so the graphic designers, the copywriters, the photographers, the filmmakers, to help them market their business in an ethical way and find the right eco clients so that together they can craft epic campaigns that will inspire so many people, entire generations, to connect more with nature and shop consciously. And I'm getting so much confirmation about this. Like I'm doing iterations now with some creative freelancers, because basically these creatives have the most influence to shift behavior, to shift human behavior, especially when it comes to food, like one of our primal needs. That's like really hard. Don't mess with our food, right? So that's why like veganism is it's thought of as like such a radical thing to do. Like, oh, I couldn't do that. But creatives have such a way, the writers, the designers, the artists, the filmmakers, like it's been proven, there's been stats that like after you see something like Cowspiracy, then you don't want to eat meat anymore. You don't want to drink milk anymore or eat cheese. Like it's like you can't watch that and then not think about it the next time you do it. So these they have such an influence. And I know that if they bring their craft, their talent into this world more, because right now I find that a lot of them are struggling. They're not able to make ends meet, or they're they're not doing as well as they could be doing. And because it's the marketing. So because they don't resonate with it, because it's manipulative. So it's all this thing. So that's why I'm here to help them finally do it in a way that it feels natural and feels good. So if you're interested in that, if you're a creative or know one who is, please contact me. I'd love to talk to you. No obligation, I just like really love connecting with nature loving creative people. I love it. So you can always contact me at info@ethicalbrandmarketing.com. All the information is below. And if you resonated with anything I've said, IVF, losing the love of your child, if only temporarily, oh, how heartbreaking, or all the grief stuff, or just, divorce, like believe me, it's all good. It's all good. You're going to be okay. I hope if any of this resonates with you, that I gave you some inspiration that it will be better. It is better. So go out there and, just bring in the love, bring in the gratitude and the trust, and align your passions with your work if you can. That's like, that saved me. That literally saved me. So thank you for your time. Namaste and be well. Bye.
That's it for this episode. The next one is still in creation. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, share, subscribe, and leave stars, blue thumbs, and a review on whichever platform you listen to. If you want to be accompanied in the change processes that life offers you, if you want to live a goddess life daily and participate in the awakening of feminine energy in the world, know the secrets of witches, and apply the rituals of fairies in your daily life, contact me on my website isayabel.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter to be informed of all the news in the real and virtual world of Isayabel. You will of course find this podcast on all platforms: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc., but also on YouTube and on my website isayabel.com on the podcast page.